you and I should be able to end our careers in real estate, which is good. I don't know about our kids. We'll see what happens. Like it's every industry is moving so fast.
All right. Thank you for joining us. I am Kate Broddick, and you are in the vault with the Kate Broddick team. And I am so excited to have our guest today, Scott Benson, with the Scott Benson team. Once was Sutton, now is real.
True.
Thank you for coming, making the big drive from...
You know what? Today I came from Burlington.
Oh, okay.
Depends on where the early morning meeting is, but today was from Burlington. So.
Well, I do appreciate you making the drive. We know it's a little bit out of everyone's way, not on the highway, but hopefully you saw some tractors.
Yeah, I did. I did love driving in the countryside. Love driving. And a beautiful building you have here, and you did a great job on the outside. So,
thanks. Yeah, we like it here.
Me.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
We want to keep it really informal and casual, but I have always admired your business. You went from Sutton, which I was also at Sutton, to Real a couple of years ago, not too long.
True.
And you have a very large team with a tremendous amount of success, both in, I'm going to call it the GTA, but like Burlington, Oakville area.
Yeah, so that's our hub.
I'd say
we started in Halton, and like most teams right now, we're trying to sort of spread out.
Yeah.
I think we follow the client. So the client takes us where we go. If the client's moving to Niagara on the Lake, we start to position down there, Brant County, etc. But definitely our hub was Halton for sure.
And you've done a lot of business in Brantford.
Yeah, you know what? I would say in the last 2 years specifically, and I think that most brands we're seeing that our clientele is taking us west. Yeah. It's very rare that we're selling, somebody's house in Burlington and they're like, we're moving to Toronto. We find the opposite, direction is happening. So like I said, we follow the client, and it's been good. It's been good.
Well, how about we start with how long have you been in real estate?
Sure.
I know a little backstory from that event at the Crew office on how you started, but for everyone to listen, where you kind of started to move into real estate, how you went from an agent to running a team, and then also the switch, because there's some different avenues with real brokerage that I'm assuming would have taken you there. And we can go right into it. I'm sure there'll be conversation and questions along the way.
Cool. Okay, that's great, Kay. I appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity too. So I would say that for me, what I mentioned at that event was I got my start basically watching a real estate agent do really, really well, and I was selling him advertising. A step before that, I was an adult newspaper carrier. Yeah. So, my advertising adventure started selling the Yellow Pages phone book. Pretty simple beginning, humble beginnings. And ultimately, the Yellow Pages partnered with Google, and they started selling Google products.
Wow.
And it was a large sales force in Canada, and all of a sudden we went from selling, yellowpages.ca and the phone book to like, hey, do you want to buy the top space on Google? Obviously a product that was, in big demand. And I sold it to a great young realtor, and still friends with him today, and watched his business explode. He was spending $2,500 a month and came back to me after month 2 and said, hey, I think I should double my spend. And he was 25 years old, and I was like, wow, $5,000 a month.
That's a lot.
Yeah, on Google alone. I'm like, this guy's got something that's working. And he was a Toronto-based agent. Wow. I was in the West End, so I'm like, I think I'm going to start making some microsites and do similar advertising sort of strategy that he was doing. And all of a sudden the phone started ringing. I went and got my real estate license and kind of never looked back from there. So.
Wow. And so when was this?
This would have been 15 years ago. So what are we, 2024? So yeah, I guess right around 2000, year 2000, somewhere in there. And literally I started, as an individual agent for a month. And then I grabbed my best man in my wedding, and I'm like, hey, the phone's ringing. There's too much happening. Get your real estate license. And then from there was like my wife's cousin, and then my wife's uncle, and you just started like grow with the people that are close to you.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun. It's been a really fun adventure.
So you didn't actually start on a team. You started creating this network. Like, were you a team then with your I guess family?
It was kind of like very small. So like when we start out, I was on my own, and I had a great administrator. Shout out to Hannah if you see this podcast. She was amazing. And together, she would kind of handle the back end. I would handle the front end. And we grabbed Chris, was his name at the time, best man in my wedding. He was our second agent.
Yeah.
That was pretty much from the get-go. And then I would
Wow.
say we had a team of 4 or 5, probably 5, within the first 6 months. And it was simply because we were early to the internet advertising game.
Yeah.
So like everybody else was still doing double full page spreads,
Yeah.
and that was kind of the big ticket item. We were very, very early into the Google advertising space, and it was working well. Now that space is saturated.
Saturate. I was going to say, how much money do you have to pour into it even to just show up?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
that's the thing, even like social media, if you're one of the first people to have gotten on that and started to create that business, they didn't really have advertising as much then as they do now, but you start to see that explosion because it was new.
That's right.
And good for you for even, I mean, obviously the Yellow Pages was a stepping stone for you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I think sometimes in our walk, it's like a lot of it is effort, but a lot of it is timing. And
Yes.
and for me, it was just great timing. I also took a position in Halton, which no realtor really wanted back then.
Yeah.
So Southeast Oakville, if you know your Oakville geography for the audience, is basically the highest price point. Southeast Oakville is
Okay.
where people want to sell. A lot of the top agents were really focused on Southeast Oakville. I just happened to buy my first home in West Oakville, and it was just a lot of 60-year-old bungalows. There wasn't really a big brand in that pocket, and so I just started farming that pocket really heavily, and
Very
again
smart.
saw success. Again, timing. I wouldn't say it was a lot of planned. Wasn't a smart decision as much as it was just like I was there at the right time. There wasn't a brand in the area. We started farming, and we saw the benefits of
But
that.
you took the opportunity. So timing is everything as well. And I 100% agree with it. You're presented with something and you're like, "Oh, wow, this is interesting. I wonder what I could do with this." But you ran with it.
True.
And I mean, that is taking the opportunity with the time that was presented to you. And farming is another thing. You said you farmed in an area where there wasn't a big name. Similarly, when I came to Brantford, I knew nobody
Right.
and I moved to West Brant.
That's right.
And there wasn't the same name that you were seeing. And so I thought, well, I mean, I'm here. It's easy to do, door drops and flyers and meet people, open houses, kind of singularly focus on that spot. And then all of a sudden, my business exploded.
Yeah. I mean, our family, we like to spend summers out in Brant County, and we have a farm out that way. And yeah, Cape Broddick team, #1 in Brantford. It's like overnight success. And I think you did a great job of going into a space where there was great agents, but no one really dominated from a branding perspective. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. We watched it happen. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, right? Is I think there's a lot of new realtors that will probably listen to this podcast and think like, well, those brands kind of have territorial advantages over the
Yeah.
space, etc. But I believe strongly, like if you've got the effort and you're willing to kind of push, and specifically from a social media standpoint, maybe the billboards are all tied up, but the social media space is up for grabs.
Yeah,
So there's
absolutely it
so much
is.
opportunity still out there.
And so, where did you get your branding from? Because I will say this: I got your flyers,
Yeah,
living in Brantford,
yeah,
and you had this, and it was almost like an iconic pose, and I really loved it. You were leaning back in the chair with your legs kicked up. It was very casual, but I loved that branding of it.
yeah. You know
So,
what?
like, where did you start with this? 15 years ago.
Yeah, so I think that for me, I mean, I was never kind of a branding marketing guru. I think I had the risk tolerance to spend the money.
Yeah.
And most times I find when you do a real estate conference or you're speaking on a panel or whatever, people in the audience are always asking like, how did you grow your business? How did you grow your brand? And I jokingly but seriously say, okay, are you ready for it? Here's the real answer. It's like you have to take about a $1.5 million and you just have to like throw it out into the market. And when you do that, you'll find the best photographer, you'll find the best videographer, you'll
Yeah.
find the best advertising campaign, you'll find the best spots that you can, place those advertisements in. But you have to be willing to spend the money. And that's why there's no real secret sauce. Like that's what's
Yeah.
so cool about the brands and what we're doing is that it just really, do you want to compete with the spend? And most people don't have the appetite to compete with that spend. And that's a
Yeah.
major advantage to those of us that do,
Yeah.
are willing to spend that dollar, is that we see a return from it. I also don't believe in like picking off 2 or 3 bus shelters. For us,
Yeah.
like the question is generally like, how many bus shelters are there? Okay, there's 250. Can we get 250? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, no, we can't do that. Well, how many can we get? Well, we can get 180. Okay, well, let's take 180. And so that's kind of the style that we've led with in terms of our branding.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the key to our success is the
Yeah.
willingness to invest in the marketing dollars, which again is investing in your clients. You're investing in their listings. You're
Yeah.
investing in your team, in the leads that they will get. It's a win all the way around. But you have to be willing to keep your foot on the gas. And now is a really it's a hard time to keep your foot on the gas
It is.
because there's not a lot selling. The sales that are happening are few and far between. Inventory is up 56%. So it's like, whoa, like, am I gonna even break even this year?
That's right.
Those are some of the questions. And for me, it's just like, just keep on pushing the gas. Just keep on pushing the
Well, a
gas.
perfect example of that was when COVID happened. Pattison Billboards called me. It was in April, and the world was locked down. And she said, Kate, I've got people who canceled their billboards. And I have my billboard schedule right up until usually 3-4 years out, as
That's
long
right.
as they'll allow me.
Yep.
And she said, all these agents, they called, they canceled them. I said, I want them.
Yeah.
Because and I mean, timing, because then the market went whoosh.
Right.
But it's the brand recognition. You don't have a brand if it's not recognized.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
No, I totally agree. And those are smart moves. And I think that, for us too, we book 3-4 years out.
Yeah.
We used to be 4 years out. Now they started getting finicky.
Yeah,
like,
they
you
do.
can only book 3 years out now. People are getting upset. But suffice to say, I find in life when sort of, especially in tumultuous times, certain people lean in
Yeah.
while others pull back. And, as I probably said this many times on camera, but for me, there was this speaker that I saw maybe 15 years ago, it was in my Yellow Pages days, maybe 16 years ago. And he was a silver medalist downhill skier. And he was always finishing second. And at that level of racing, they would analyze like every turn of the race and they would slow it down. And after the first couple turns, he'd be in first position. And then by the time he would go around that slalom part where you take flight, you actually take off in the air for a brief second, then you land, he would realize that he went from first to second or third. And so it was in that moment that he was losing his time. And what they realized by slowing down the camera was that when he took air, it was just the slightest lift out of his tuck, which created a bit of a parachute. And it would just slow him down by a couple of milliseconds. He'd land, and he would have gone from first to second in the air. And anyways, the point of his story was they analyzed it, and they put him in this zero gravity sort of space, and he would practice holding his tuck and rolling. And anyways, he practiced leaning in. Instead of pulling back, he practiced leaning in. And so now, the end of the story is he goes off that turn, he takes flight, but he leans into the jump and he finishes first. I think he wins I think it was a world championship. And so that was kind of his message, was like, there are going to be people when, there's a little bit of fear or when there's a little bit of tumultuous in the marketplace or whatever, their tendency is going to be to sort of pull back, and you're going to create a parachute. And he learned, he taught himself to lean in. And that's kind of what I've kind of kept as sort of a mantra, if you will, but like sort of a business strategy is like every time I feel, because I'm a human being, I feel right now like, boy, it'd be nice to stop spending money on advertising. I just know, just lean in. So
I love that because it's the truth. Anytime there's any situation, it doesn't even have to be real estate related. If you pull back, you usually don't get the same results that you want than if you lean into it. Difficult situations, hard conversations, rejection, even with clients.
Totally.
When you pick up the phone, like, oh God, it's that seller calling again and the house isn't selling. Well, you should be calling them before they're calling you.
Couldn't agree more.
Right? So I love that analogy.
Yeah, and I love that you just took it out of real estate, because the thing is the analogy works in life, right?
It does.
Brief little anecdotal thing about my kid, 12 years old, amazing kid, right? Just, we love our kids. I know you love your kids. And yesterday he was having trouble with his teacher, and she's asking too much of him, and the homework's too much, and anyways, in those moments, I sometimes feel like, you know what, like I just gotta let him just grow up and just let him figure it out or whatever.
Yeah.
But I took the opportunity to like really pour into the conversation on like what's going on, what's happening, whatever. And I'll tell you, we had one of those moments as father and son, or mother and son can have, where we bonded and we moved the relationship further and closer as a result of like leaning into what was happening. And I just think it's a great way to live life.
It is.
Relationships, business, clients, like you mentioned, like it's just a great way to go. So,
everything.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that because it's true. I mean, well, you know this. I mean, obviously, you had that conversation on the panel when we were at the crew. And I'm referencing that because I did learn a lot about you from that and your business just through your answers of like, there are people who run their businesses one way. I am heavily market based,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And I would probably be somewhere in between that because I have a very large marketing budget that in my mind is if I'm not out there and people don't see me, people won't know who I am.
That's right.
But having said that, I mean, in these times, I would be the first one to say there have been days where I've woken up and I'm like, man, I've got, 8 billboards out there. I've got flyers peppering the city. I've got this, I've got that. Sales are down over 50%.
Yeah, like I said, it's hard. I think that for us, I try to stick the way that I feel underneath what I know, and I'm stealing that phrase from a sermon I heard in church, I think. But basically, it was saying like you have to position the way that you feel, because sometimes I can wake up and I'm just having a bad day,
Yeah.
and like that day I don't even want to go to work.
Yeah.
But I know that that's not a right decision, because
Yeah.
what I know is I still have to pay the bills. I have a family to feed, so like I better get to work.
Yeah.
My wife's really good at reminding me like, okay, Scott, enough complaining. Just get out the door and
Yeah,
just
go
go
do the
just go to work.
things.
We got bills to pay. So, but suffice to say, for me, like we're in a phase right now, or a space of the market where I have to position the way that I feel, which is at times I feel fearful, frustrated. I'm nervous at times because I'm continually spending high dollars. But I have to stick it under what I know. And what I know is if you were to take any 10-year segment in real estate,
Yeah.
including the 2008 crash, I know Canada didn't feel like a huge effect like the U.S. did. But if you were to take U.S. numbers from 2006 to 2016, that was a massive upswing in the
Yeah.
market. And that includes the 2008 crash. So I don't think we're going to see a 2008 crash.
Yeah.
But if I look at a 10-year outlook, even the 2008 crash had a major upswing.
It did.
So I know that investing in our markets now, investing in our clients, investing in the advertising dollars for our clients, which I know you do heavily, they pay off. Maybe we actually lose money in the short term. Maybe we break even. Maybe we lose money on a listing,
Yeah.
But I think over the next 10 years,
It's a win.
it's a win. Our brands succeed. We grow,
Yeah.
agent count, volume of deals will increase. And I think that investing in our agents right now is a good thing. We're heavily investing in coaching and training. We just sent out a survey. What's important to you? What's important to you right now in this space? How can we be better leaders? How can we be a better team together? And we're using some of that feedback to make adjustments. Takes time, takes money,
Yeah.
effort, but I do believe that there's a payoff, and it's worth it.
I agree. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's you don't win every day, but you could win the year,
Right.
right? You may not win the year, but you may win the decade.
Yes, exactly.
And that's true. I mean, that's true to anything in life. I mean, and if you continue to push forward during those times that are more challenging, you're going to see a greater reward when the market changes.
Exactly.
And I think that's where a lot of people are putting their head in the sand right now, or have, over the last 2 years. So then you spoke about training with your training with your agents. How would you say you're keeping them motivated in this market too, right? Because I mean, even the leads that come in, I mean, we know before if you got 2 listing appointments, you should have at least gotten one of them.
For sure.
Now it's what's happening.
Yeah, and I think too, like a very real statement that we can just say up front is like you could also take a listing with the assurity that it's likely to sell.
Yeah.
So like you're investing dollars, mega dollars, generally speaking,
Yeah.
aerials, staging, photography, just listed flyers.
Social campaigns.
Doing shorts and videos and podcasts.
Yeah.
And all this stuff costs money.
It does.
And shout out to our 2 behind the scenes,
Yeah.
Jamie and Brad. We love you guys. But it all costs money. And so for me, it's like we're in a space now where it's you just have to continually do what you know will work.
Yeah.
Whether or not there's a short-term gain or not, look at the long-term cycle and just stay focused on it. Because if you stay focused on the short term right now, this space doesn't even make sense.
No, and
like
it's,
it does.
it's a bad mindset too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't get out of that if you're dwelling on the current reality of what the market's doing. It's almost like one day at a time, one listing at a time, one buyer at a time. Close those deals, move on to the next, just as you would.
Yeah.
Maybe not as many sales that are occurring, but maybe there's more nurturing that you have to do with your clients.
Right.
But there's also a lot of re-strategy. How are you approaching that with your agents right now? Because I mean, If you take a look at the MLS and the back end of our system, we're seeing a lot of price changes, price reductions, cancels and relists.
Hmm.
There's just a lot of turnover in what we would have traditionally seen, even take away the pandemic, even 5 years ago,
Right.
right? If you listed a property and it was priced well, it would sell within 30 days here in Brantford or Brant County or Norfolk. During the pandemic, it didn't matter what the price was. The house was selling over asking. Everyone was happy except for the buyers that didn't get it.
That's right.
And now you're listing a house thinking you know what the price is going to be. 2 weeks goes by, 30 days goes by, pivot, re-strategy calls, we need to change price. I know you're a fan of listing lower. I am also a fan of listing lower.
Yeah.
I think it's a great advice, especially in this market, get the attention.
Yep.
How are you approaching that with your
Yeah,
with
so
your
definitely the list low
agents?
strategy is something we use. I'm a big believer in it because even if the list low strategy, and for those that don't know, a list low strategy on our team anyways is coming 25% below the perceived value. So it's a significant list low. It's not like list,
10
100
grand,
Yeah, like $50,000 under and try and hit that number. It's like, no, let's take it right down. Let's create a true bidding war. Let's engage the market. Even if it doesn't sell on that day, you've actually created a market out of nowhere. So you've brought a whole bunch of showings together,
Yeah.
30, 40 showings in 5 days. Now you've got that captive audience to actually negotiate with. So maybe they didn't get exactly what your seller was hoping to get, but you can stay engaged with them over the coming days. And we often
Yeah.
put together those deals, maybe a day or two after the actual offer date, because maybe on offer date they didn't quite get a deal done, but now there's people to engage with. And then the other point you asked about was just kind of how do we keep our agents motivated, engaged,
Yeah.
etc. I would say that trust is a big factor with us right now.
Yes.
So they kind of have, most of our agents have a track record with us. So they know that in general, we've made the right decisions. We've taken them on a journey that's been profitable, successful. They have lives that they enjoy and a work-life balance that works for them. So we rely on that trust in this space. But we also, I would say, focus on what's working. So first-time home buyers right now, I mean, in real estate, we can joke about this, but like, who wants a first-time home buyer as like the highest quality lead? And we love you first-time home buyers, but you guys can take time to purchase because there's no motivation on you've sold a house, you need to buy something in 60
That's
days.
right.
So when we're handing out a first-time home buyer sort of lead, it's like, okay, this person could buy in 5 years. They could buy in 5 weeks. Who knows? Like this could be a very, very long
You
process.
could see 50 houses. They still don't know what they want.
That's right. It's like, can we just like, and I'm saying this flippantly, but maybe we could just like pay me minimum wage on this. Like, just give me $15 an hour, and let's just just see how this goes. So all that to say that we are now leaning into a big segment of the market that was forever priced out.
Yes.
That is now really, really active. And in the last 2 days, 2 deals done, lower price points, entry level price points, but first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
And so we're very thankful for that, and we're kind of leaning into that
Yes.
with some of our marketing strategies, certainly with, I would say, time and effort. And another thing too I'll add is, with a team, generally people see the listing side as less rigorous
Yes.
in terms of like time spent
That's
driving
right.
around, opening
Yep.
doors, etc. Equally difficult with regards to cerebral stress and pressure and all those things.
Yes.
But I would say, we're not driving around as much on a listing. But listings were then kind of like, well, those are maybe better qualified leads. Like now it's like, no.
No. I want
Where are the
buyer.
buyers?
Yeah.
Give me the buyers. And
That's
so
right.
so again, that's a shift for us is now we're focusing on like really qualified buyers and getting them qualified with a mortgage broker because qualifications are hard.
Absolutely.
So we're pivoting, we're shifting. That's what good salespeople do. We watch you guys do it. Big respect for your brand and watching you guys pivot and shift and do things correctly. And we expect it. I mean, this is why we're,
And it's, but that's the thing is not everyone does because we always looked at listings as like the holy grail of real estate.
Yeah.
If you had your face on a sign on someone's lawn, you were doing really well, especially
Right.
if you had multiple of them.
Sure.
And so you said you're pivoting even with your marketing,
Yeah.
and that's essential because it's not just, you might be known as a really great listing agent. So you're getting those listing calls and it's not that you don't want them, but we know that they're selling few and far between. There is a lot more, like I said, finagling, nurturing with the client, which is fine. Not
Yeah,
a problem at
of
all.
course.
But now, almost like with this urgency and buyers get into the market, to work with a buyer now is actually enjoyable.
Yes. Yeah, and it comes from, for me anyways, a place where I actually truly believe that there's a dip and you can buy the dip. So I think that it helps if you think that there is a dip in time
Yeah.
and the markets will resurge. I don't think that they're going to skyrocket in the next 6
No.
months, but I do think that there's an opportunity in the next 6 months I mean, for sure in the next 3 months, right?
Yeah.
From now until Christmas,
Yeah.
there's an opportunity to sort of pick up a dip, I think a better price than you'll find
I
in the
agree.
spring because of the lever of interest rates. So like the government still has that big lever. They move interest rates down, it is going to propel the market upward. How much upward, we'll see. I think that the counterbalance to that is the fact that you have a lot of renewals coming up.
Yes.
And so that,
Inventory.
yeah, inventory is climbing as a result. First time in my career, I have seen power of sales. I have never noticed power of sales in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Even in our listing, portfolio right now, we've got a couple power of sales,
Wow.
and that's new. So there's some counterbalance to just lowering interest rates and watching the market take off. But I think that there is an opportunity. If I was a betting man, I'm not, but I would say that this is a great market to jump in, and I think that you're going to see some upswing in the spring.
I agree with you. And I think even just with the next two announcements, I know most people aren't shopping for a variable rate mortgage, but ultimately they parallel in terms of decline, not at the same day. Everyone's talking about, October 23rd, if the rates come down, it's like, well, that's a variable rate mortgage. Most people really aren't shopping for that right now.
Right.
With being squeezed and the stress of what the last couple of years have brought with inflation, cost to live, groceries, gas, people want to know what they're paying every month, right? But we have seen them fall quietly because you don't see the advertisements of that.
That's right.
But I've seen people now get just about 4.59%, which was a huge win over the 6% we saw last year around the August time. But now what are you kind of anticipating for the next few months? How do you feel 2025 is going to play out?
Yeah, I would say specifically with interest rates, I think that interest rates are going to come down. So
I
I think that
agree.
they've basically, and when I say they, I mean that the government and the media have basically conceded the fact that like they're going to lower interest rates. Is it going to be a 25 beeps? Is it going to be 0.5?
Yeah.
We'll see, probably 0.5 in October.
Yeah.
But I think that the overall landscape, like there's a lot of geopolitical things happening in the world.
There is.
I mean, this is you talk to most people that are just walking around through life, like they can feel something in the air
Yeah.
and something is uneasy. And I would say that we feel that.
Yeah.
So there's, I'm a golfer in my past life, and I would say that I was very much a golfer that was kind of like a touch and feel sort of golfer. So I wasn't very mechanical in nature, but I would just like feel out how hard to hit that putt or feel out how hard to hit that chip. When it comes to business, I tend to run in the same way. So I'm sort of making decisions a little bit on mechanics of real estate, but a lot on like touch and feel. And the touch and feel right now tells me that there's probably a storm that we're going to weather. So I would say, it's probably upon us and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
We're probably in the beginning of it. And I don't think it's a hurricane, but I
No.
think there's a storm. And I think that if this geopolitical stuff and the interest rate balancing act, if they don't get those things just right, I think then you could see a tornado.
Yeah.
But for now, we'll make decisions on what we know. What we know is they're probably going to lower interest rates. The market's probably going to uptick as a result in the spring. So we make decisions based on that. But I don't concede the fact that like there's not a potential hard landing here.
No.
I think there could be.
But you're also a faith-based person too, aren't you?
Yeah, big faith-based person. Thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate that. So yeah, for me, I would say that I come from a Christian worldview. So like everything for me comes through that lens.
Yep.
And I would say that, like what I see on the radar is I see a bunch of people that are, broken people and we make mistakes and even see that across countries and wars and things like that. And so I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah.
But I would say that, for me, my faith becomes very important right now.
Yeah, you're not ignorant to it.
Yeah, I'm not ignorant to it. And I think that, like it sounds corny, maybe cheesy, but like forgiveness, love, compassion. I mean, these are things that we still need to think about and need to be on the forefront of all facets of our life. Like if we're not leading with those principles in business and family and friendships and otherwise, then we're going to be way off course.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Seems like we're
A little off course right now.
as a world, we seem to be a little off course. So it would be nice to see some of those principles come back for sure.
Very good.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the question of the day for me is, are you still selling?
Yes.
Okay.
Short answer, I would say that I am still selling, but it's in a capacity that is manageable because you know this as well as anybody. When you are running a team, when you are running, you're basically overseeing marketing, HR, you're overseeing operations, you're overseeing bookkeeping. Like there's a lot of hats that we wear, coaching and training. You're running a podcast. So like some people's full-time job is running a podcast. This
Yeah.
is like 1/20th of what you do.
Yeah.
And so I would say that I fit in some sales in there, but it's definitely not like it used to. So
No.
we tend to pass out the majority of the leads. There's some great clients that I've worked with over like a long period of time.
Yeah.
And we've built a relationship, and they'll come back and want to deal with me alone.
Of course.
But yeah, for the majority of the cases, I would say we're really team driven, but not completely removed from sales.
No, but also I
Yeah.
think having your toes still in the water also allows you to be a better leader because you can accurately advise your agents on market conditions, what you're personally seeing in the marketplace too. I'm a big believer that team leaders, at some capacity, and I mean I've was heavily in my sales, up until probably 3 or 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And my goal is to step back, of course the market changed, but step back
Yeah.
further and further, not because I don't want to be in sales and I haven't loved it, but because I'm in a different chapter. And so the reason why I ask you that is, do you not feel that being, even if it's just a little bit, even if you only personally sold 10 to 15 homes in the year, do you not feel it makes you a better leader and
Yes,
mentor?
100% it does. I would say from a compassion standpoint,
Yeah.
like you said, to have kind of a feel of the market, but also, I often say to my realtors on the teams, like, when's the last time you moved? Because to have compassion over what our sellers are going through,
Yes.
with regards to like just accepting showings. So like sometimes as realtors, and I'm just being real moment as a realtor here, but sometimes a showing gets rejected in this market by one of our sellers, let's say, and as a realtor, we're like,
What's going on?
what did you do? Like, why would you reject a showing in this market? But the truth is like, they just popped the chicken in the oven. Their kids just got home from school. They're tired.
Yeah.
So there's that compassion side as well when you're in the space and you're actively working in the space. And I think compassion for our realtors as well.
Yep.
It is, we follow KPIs. So we run it like a business, right?
Yep.
We're very, very business oriented in kind of following the metrics. And sometimes the KPIs don't tell the story. For us, KPIs, list to sale ratio, days on market,
Yep.
number of showings, sales in the pocket. Like we really focus and hone in on them, but they don't tell you the story of like buyer exhaustion or affordability.
Yeah.
Why are these things slowing down? Maybe we have like an affordability issue, which I think we do,
Yep.
and renewals coming up. So that's, I think, a benefit to staying engaged in the market.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to your point, it's important as a team lead to just have your fingers in the baking and in the ingredients. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, how do you measure confidence? Because that's one of the things we've been lacking.
Yeah.
When you're talking to your sellers or your agents are talking to their sellers and like, well, we don't know why we're not selling. We're not getting the showings. Confidence is down. You can't measure that. You can't send them an analytics report to say, this is the confidence of buyers,
That's right.
or this is the burnout of buyers, or
Yeah.
this is the burnout of agents, or
Exactly.
this is just the overall doom and gloom that people are feeling in this
Right.
market.
That's right.
So I do believe personally that it's hard to advise. You can always do strategies that are, pretty business oriented, that measure metrics, that, you've got your speed to lead and your follow up, and you've got your CRM and how you manage those things in your business, your marketing, your administrative staff, who does what generate tasks for your back of end staff. All of that stuff generally stays the same. You pivot a little bit. You kind of look back at it over your year in your business plan. But it's really hard to coach conversations and situations and market conditions if you're not in them.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I think it's a great sort of point that you've hit on. And I think it's important for everybody. Like even if you're an agent right now and maybe you're a solo agent, maybe you don't have a huge portfolio of clients or you don't have active listings, etc. Be active in the marketplace. I just told a couple of agents on our team, like, go see a house that you think is a great deal. So like have a house that's on your mind that is a great deal from your perspective. Because once you see it, you're going to go tell people about this house that you saw.
Yeah.
That's a great deal. It'd be a great buy to pick it up. That can produce a showing. That can produce a sale. Go see a house that you think would be a phenomenal flip. Go see a house that you think would be an amazing property for a luxury client. And because you're in the mix, because you're actively engaged in real estate, as realtors, we tend to talk. And we tend to talk a lot. And so if you have properties that are on the tip of your tongue, you're going to be actively selling without knowing it. And so, to your point, just stay engaged. You have to stay, like, you can do many different things in this marketplace, but what you can't do is nothing. You can't just sit around expecting everything to change. You have to do something.
Or throw yourself a lot of content creators. And I'm very big on social media in terms of I keep it active, I keep it engaged, but that is such a very small portion of what I do. I actually do it for therapy. It's like enjoyment. I put the stuff out there. I love our clients. I love our information that we can provide to them. I love this podcast. But you can't default to that only and
That's
speak to this fictitious crowd that's, possibly watching you. You have to be engaged with people.
yes.
And that means on the phone, in person, at open houses.
Yes.
Does your team do open houses?
Yes, we do. It's a good question. I would say that we realize the numbers. So 2% of sales happen through an open house, 98% of sales happen through an agent showing. So we know that the agent showing is far more qualified.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But I would say that certainly on request, we would do an open house. And what I actually like to do, and this is a bit of strategy, but we like to run an open house when we know that there's going to be a busy weekend of showings.
Yes.
And so we like to collide traffic into a qualified showing with open house traffic because you feel that buzz, you feel that energy in the house.
Excitement.
It feels like there's a sense of urgency.
Oh my God, someone's here showing it.
Exactly. It's like, whoa, we better put an offer in. Like, there's a lot of people in the house.
That's right.
And I think that's a good strategy. So that's kind of where we'll use open houses.
I'm impartial to them in the fact that I think they're a great opportunity to get feedback from neighbors.
True.
How do you feel it's priced? How do you feel it shows? So it's at least engaging with people who've been through the home firsthand rather than just receiving the feedback from the agent who showed it.
Yep.
I also believe that the first week or two is the most prominent time to do an open house for the exact reason that you just shared. Likely, the most activity you're going to get on any listing when you first put it to market, if it's priced well, marketed well, is going to be within your first 2 weeks.
Yep.
First weeks specifically. So for us, the open houses, if our clients want them, we have a lot of agents on the team, similar to you and how you run your team. If we have an agent posted there in that first weekend, you're going to have the traffic. Hopefully you'll have the showings, you'll have the excitement. And at the very least, at the end of the day, we get some feedback from like actual people in the public, right?
Yeah. And I think that, for us, and I know you guys are the same, like there is a 360-degree solution. It's kind of a holistic solution to getting the home sold.
Yeah.
And back in my advertising days, it was like, do you want to close one of the doors? Let's say there's 15 doors of access to this house. There's 15 ways to find a buyer or get a buyer through the house. Like, are you okay with closing half of them? We often, as large teams, we know what we pour into marketing. And so we know how to market a property. And then we'll sometimes see a client that goes with maybe somebody who doesn't have a marketing budget or someone who doesn't have a strategy. And we think like, wow, they just closed like 16 of the 25 doors to their house. Yes, it's still on MLS, but is it on multiple MLS boards? Is it on social media? Is there a drip campaign? Is there shorts and reels? So for us, open houses is just one of those doors. It's 25 doors to access this home. If we want to close that one, I'm okay with it. It's 2% of the market.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to close another 10 alongside of it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we would address that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm assuming, I've stepped out of open houses, I think it was just before COVID hit. But you have agents that will pick up open houses within your office listings.
Yeah, and I think that like it's for me, open houses, and the seller knows this, right? The seller will say, like, sometimes you guys just want an open house because you want to meet the neighbors and try and sell their house.
You're like, you're not wrong.
And that's that's a very fair. I think that's a fair statement. It's very objective to think that way. There is still a benefit to the seller, but we're not, pushing them because, we realize that there is a benefit to the agent.
Yeah, of course.
For us on our team, it would mostly be either the listing agent who really wants to drive traffic for their seller, or it may be a buyer agent that's looking for active buyers in the pocket. I still believe in influence. I still believe in great salesmanship. So when I see somebody that's fired up about a property and they get to talk to people inside that home, I think there's huge value to the seller.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And you have to be passionate. You have to actually want to sell the home and be excited about it. Not post it at the kitchen table with your head down into your computer and just like, oh, hey, there's a sign-in sheet.
Yes.
Like, that doesn't work, right? Then you're not executing the open house for its intended purpose.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 points that I would make on that. So number one is sellers generally choose the agent they feel is the most passionate and enthusiastic about their home. So know that if you're an agent watching the podcast, like there are lots of things to be excited about, even about a property that maybe is not a property that's your type of property. Maybe you love the lot. Maybe you love the school district. Like, let that client know that you love their lot, that you love their school district. Maybe you don't like the fact that there's green carpets and 15 animals in the house, but there are things that you're excited about.
Course.
And then from a seller's standpoint, I think that it's important for them to know that you will emphatically go after selling this house. Like, we are passionate about getting you an offer, And especially those clients that will sort of follow our strategy.
Yeah.
They'll take our recommendations. They may take our pricing strategy, which is really appreciated.
Yeah.
But then it becomes this really, really great team. And together you'll see success.
I agree.
Yeah.
So what are you? What's on the horizon now? Here, I was briefly want to talk about Real. So you obviously joined this brokerage. That was what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was about 2 years
2
ago,
years
I
ago?
think. Yeah, January 2 years ago. So it was at Sutton Group like yourself.
Yeah.
Great Canadian brokerage. Had a really great broker of record. Great relationship with her. I think for me, I saw the landscape changing, and I saw that what's going to be the future of real estate. And there's a big camp that believes that they can eliminate the agent. So that's a very real thing, right?
It is a very real thing.
You got venture capitalist groups that think they can just remove the agent out of the deal. There's a big percentage in the middle there, and those venture capitalists want to set up corporations that basically buy and sell the property for you, and then they take that percentage out of the middle. And then there's a camp that believes that the agent will always be in the middle. I think there will continually be pressure on commissions, which is good for our consumer. But I think that being a emotional decision and a large decision, there's going to be a human being that's going to be walking that decision through, even 10 years from now. So I fell into the camp of, I believe firmly that the agent will be in the middle of the deal in some capacity. It will change, AI and everything will change the way that we do business, but I think that will still be a big part of it. And so then I looked at the landscape and I was like, okay, you have traditional brokerages, franchise models, they've got office buildings, they've got locations, still important. But then you had a bunch of brokerages that were kind of going in this tech sort of, direction. And I met with the leadership at Real, phenomenal leadership. Love this CEO. Like, I truly love this guy. He's just probably one of the highest quality people I've ever met, Tamir Poleg. And tend to make decisions based on people, not based on money or numbers. And I met him and I'm like, I'm all in. And it's been a great decision. It's been a fast-paced growing brokerage, and the stock's gone up, which is always great.
Yeah, it is always great.
Always good when you hold stock.
Yeah.
So no complaints there. But it's going to be an interesting landscape. I think that agents are going to make decisions based on 3 pillars. I think culture is still going to be a big pillar.
Yeah, I agree.
I think tech will be a big pillar. And I think financials will be a big pillar, right? So like, what do those splits look like? What are the compensation models look like? And I think that's when you see a rev share model is starting to sort of at least make a huge dent, if not sway a movement. Now, that's not everything, because you can, which we've seen with some brokerages, I won't name them, but you can see a great financial model, but you can see a culture that has been either non-existent or eroded or even a bad culture, and that's not going to keep people either.
No, it's not.
You have to have everything.
And there is work behind the rev share model, because people think, well, I'm going to, for every person that comes on, there's those like, kind of like, I don't want to say you get the legs down, right? You've, whoever's underneath you, you still have to coach, nurture, check up on them. The culture is a big one.
True.
Because people want to stay together where they feel most empowered, most inspired. And so it's great to bring all these people on, but if you bring them on and then just let them go, and then it's like, my hands are tied now, you came in, it's an ongoing relationship chase.
Yeah,
really.
It's very true. It's very true. It's very similar to running a team. So like the thing is like we have to nurture our relationships. We have to keep engaged, keep opportunities coming. The revenue share model is not passive income. That's for sure. No. It's kind of sold sometimes as passive income, but it's very active income. You're definitely staying active with the people that you bring into the brokerage.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's a very fair statement. I do think that, down the road, we'll see what happens with companies like Zillow. It's a monster company. It's fascinating to me that Zillow's model, which is in the US for those that don't know, basically is making revenue off of agents advertising on their space. I think, I'm not saying I'm right, but I think their end goal is to try to eliminate the agent, to try to develop a platform that has more information, I guess is a good word, but basically more listings than the actual realtor's database. And if they can effectively get more people posting on their site than, say, a realtor.com, well, guess what? You've just won the war. And so I think that we're going to see more of that. So we'll see what comes down the pipe. But you and I should be able to end our careers in real estate, which is good. I don't know about our kids. We'll see what happens. Like it's every industry is moving so fast that it's fascinating, right? Like even look at the banking sector.
Oh, my goodness.
If you told me 5 years ago that like Bitcoin was going to be a real possibility of becoming a currency.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't understand Bitcoin, but
Yeah.
I understand enough to know that I need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because it's a real thing.
Yeah, it is
So
a real thing.
these things are happening across every landscape.
Well, even if you look in Canada, House Sigma, right? How much do you hate when your client's like, well, I saw this on House Sigma.
Yes.
I'm like, my goodness, it's because I want to be the one that to provide the information,
Yes.
to be that expert in that area. But I mean, once again, we do have our own kind of Canadian version of that now. And I
Very
actually
true.
just saw some online advertising on Google off to the side, where they do the ad rollers
Yeah.
about House Sigma.
Yeah.
And I'm like, advertise here.
Yeah.
It's
And this is
it's
the
not
thing. And
far
I
off.
think what sets you apart as kind of that consummate professional is like you're willing to acknowledge a competing space
Yes.
that's doing well. And I mean, House Sigma is a competitor, but we would have to acknowledge the fact that like you guys came up with a great software. It's
Yeah.
a great site. It's consumer friendly, and kudos to you.
And people love it.
People love it. Broker Bay, another
Yeah.
example of something that changed our industry overnight. Brilliant software developer did that, and I think sold to, I can't remember who he sold to. It might have been Treb even. Don't quote me on that. But anyways, just a really brilliant mind that came into the space and was like, we don't book showings in an efficient way. Let's change the way we
Yeah.
book showings. Boom, overnight it changes. So we've seen some massive DocuSign. I mean,
Oh
that's
my
maybe
goodness.
dating us.
Do you remember driving down the road at like 11 o'clock at night to get that initial?
Yeah.
Because your client didn't have printer
That's
ink?
right. Yeah, no. And it's funny, but like that's why the industry was always done it. Like we finished deals at 12:30.
Yes, it was terrible.
Now it's like if we're not doing a deal by like 6 p.m.
Don't call me.
Yeah, like why would we work till midnight anymore?
No.
But it was because we were driving all over,
That's
town.
right.
So yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that people are listening to this that have no idea what we're talking
No,
about.
no.
So anyways, yeah.
You know, it's great insight. And honestly, I want to say it's been great having you here. You're a wealth of knowledge, class act, amazing team. Primarily, once again, I knew you from the Burlington Oakville. Then I saw you come in and I was like, and now you're so prevalent even in our area and spreading out. And I think that's amazing. I think anyone's business plan that fulfills them and helps them to attain the goal that they want, is fantastic. And you've done an exceptional job. Your marketing is amazing.
Thank
I
you.
will say that. And any
Sure.
agent that I've ever dealt with that's been on your team has been top-notch, true professional.
Thanks.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
Mutual respect, and thank you so much.
Yeah. So if you want to tune into this podcast, you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Thank you again
Thank
for coming.
you.
But if someone wants to reach you, where would they find you?
Yeah, just online. Just Google us. I mean, we're
Just
paying for
Google.
we're paying for Google
Yeah,
ads.
he's got
So
the
the Google
money
ads are
behind
out there,
Google ads.
and
What
yeah.
about on Instagram? That's
Just do me a favor. Don't click. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
that means don't
yeah,
overcharge him.
we're paying for those clicks, but no. Click away. I'm just kidding. Yeah, Instagram. So Scott Benson Team is our Instagram handle, and yeah, YouTube. I mean, we've got all the channels going. So I would say if you can't find us, that's an issue.
Yeah, well, if you can't
So-
find Scott, you can message us on our podcast that's being released in November. We're happy to put you in touch. And once again, thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining.
thanks, Kate. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.